In 2007, Chesky and Joe Gebbia, two friends, were in a tight spot financially. They lived in San Francisco, a place that was full of new ideas but tough on rent. Their rent was due, their money was almost gone, and the stress of keeping their apartment made them think of ways to get it back. As artists who didn't have steady jobs, they knew they had to think outside the box to get by. They found out one day that a design conference with a lot of people was coming to town. Visitors had a hard time finding a place to stay because all the hotels were full. When Joe heard about it, he had a crazy idea that might work. Let's rent out our living room. He shared this thought with Brian, but not just any rental. As an added bonus, they would blow up air mattresses for guests to sleep on and serve food. They thought it was a strange idea that could fill a need in the market. They jumped right into action because they were excited about the opportunity. Their business was called Airbed and Breakfast, and they made a simple website to show what they were selling. After that, they held on. They were shocked to find that 3 people had reserved their sitting room for the conference. It might not seem like much, but having 3 guests was a big deal for Brian and Joe. This showed that their strange idea could bring in paying users. Not only did they pay their rent for the month, but they also started the business that would become Airbnb, a billion-dollar giant. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to change how people worldwide moved. Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia started to dream bigger after their first business. Airbed and Breakfast did well. They tried something new by renting out air mattresses to people at a conference. It worked, but they thought this idea could be used in more places than just their living room. What if people from all over the world let tourists stay in their homes? It could make a cheap, personalized, and one-of-a-kind hotel alternative. A new way to travel that felt more personal and linked. But it wouldn't be easy to make this dream come true. Brian and Joe were great artists with lots of creative ideas, but they had a big problem. They didn't know how to code. Their idea could not come to life without the help of a tech genius who could build them a good platform. That's when Joe got in touch with Blecharczyk, an old roommate who is a bright software engineer who is great at fixing problems. Nathan was interested in the idea and thought it could work. He agreed to work with them, and they began their mission. Nathan gave them the technical know-how they needed so badly, and the two of them started working on making their website stronger and easier for people to use. They worked hard, staying up late to come up with ideas and making a lot of mistakes, but they were determined to make their goal come true. This small but dedicated group was almost done making something new, even if they were not sure what it was yet. When you have a great idea, it doesn't always work out right away. In its early years, Airbnb was full of doubt and sorrow. In 2008, Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Blecharczyk started their website at the same time as South by Southwest, SXSW, a huge tech conference in Austin, Texas. The group thought that their platform would bring in a lot of travelers looking for cheap places to stay. Yet instead of a rush of reservations, they only got 2 people to sign up. It was a terrible blow. The world didn't seem ready for their idea after all their hard work. It was not just that people were not aware of it. The idea itself was the trouble. A lot of people thought it was weird, dangerous, or risky to stay in someone else's house. Why would someone do that? Doubters asked. Potential donors were just as doubtful. This is too niche to ever work, said one famous person who turned down the plan. A lot of people would have given up after such failures. But Brian, Joe, and Nathan couldn't stop dreaming. They wouldn't let early failures change their mission. They put on their thinking caps and went back to the drawing board instead. They chose to put in even more work, making their product better and building trust. They knew that Airbnb could change the way people traveled around the world if they could address people's worries and make their ideas easier for more people to use. They were set on seeing the seeds of persistence grow, and they were going to do it. By the middle of 2008, Airbnb was almost bankrupt. The 3 people on the team, Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Blecharczyk, had put everything they had into their new business. But they were not getting any more bookings, and their finances were a mess. People had maxed out their credit cards and were getting more and more in debt every day. There was no way they could stay afloat. The US presidential race made headlines all year, making it a very important year in America. People were very interested in the race because Barack Obama and John McCain were running. Then the 3 of them had a brilliantly original thought. What if we make and sell cereal with election themes? They got to work making custom cereal boxes. Obama's had hope in every bowl written on them, and Captain McCain's had a maverick in every bite. It wasn't just smart designs. The team made real cereal boxes, filled them by hand, and sold each one for $40. They were shocked when the cereal became a big hit. The creative idea made people love the boxes so much that they flew off the shelves. Airbnb got a much-needed $30,000. This prank saved the company at a very important time, but the effect was bigger than the money. The cereal story made a lot of noise, which got Airbnb in the news and helped their failing business get some much-needed attention. It was a strange and brave move that not only saved the business, but also showed they could think outside the box. If you are enjoying the video so far, you won't believe what happened next with Airbnb. But before we go there, you can appreciate our efforts by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Moving back to the topic, the owners of Airbnb, Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecharczyk, got into Y Combinator in 2009, which is one of the best places in the world for startups to grow. People knew that Y Combinator could help new businesses improve their ideas, make better goods, and get investors. For Airbnb, it was a chance to give their failing business a new lease on life. They got $20,000 from the program as seed money, which was helpful but didn't change their lives. What they got in return was a real treasure, help and advice. Paul Graham, one of their teachers, told them something that would change the course of their business. Go meet your users. Because of this suggestion, the team got on a plane and flew to New York City, where most of their early users lived. They went from door to door to meet hosts and ask them about their experiences with the app. What they found shocked them. Many hosts had pictures of their spaces that were poorly lit and didn't look appealing, which turned off potential guests. To fix this, Brian and Joe got their cameras and started taking pictures of the ads like a real estate agent would. They also paid close attention to what users said and used that information to make the website better and easier to use. The way they did things by hand made a big difference. Listings looked better, hosts felt like they were getting help, and trust in the site started to grow. Airbnb was finally taking off by the end of 2009. The company was on its way to becoming a major player in the travel market as bookings began to rise. Airbnb's rise was nothing short of meteoric once it got going. It started as a way to rent out extra rooms, but it quickly grew into something much bigger. The team saw that they could do more than just provide lodging. They could also create unique vacation experiences. Soon, Airbnb had a wide range of unique places to stay, from whole homes to tree houses, yurts, houseboats, and even castles. People loved the idea of staying in unique places that were cheap and personal, which was something that hotels couldn't do. By 2011, Airbnb had reached a big goal. 1 million nights had been booked on the site. This wasn't just a number, it showed that people all over the world agreed with their plan. By 2012, Airbnb was growing so quickly that it opened offices in London, Paris, Berlin, and other places around the world. But what made Airbnb stand out wasn't just the different kinds of stays, it was how they built a sense of community. A lot of the time, hosts and guests became real friends and shared stories, tips, and even food. This made travel much more personal and turned it from a transactional experience into something much more meaningful. When guests stayed with hosts, they loved learning about the area, and hosts loved meeting visitors from all over the world. This focus on real relationships became Airbnb's secret sauce. It set the company apart from traditional hospitality and solidified its position as a major force for change in the travel industry. As Airbnb grew, things weren't always easy. The business had a lot of problems, especially in the beginning. Safety worries, legal fights, and racism were all things that could have stopped it from being successful. But Airbnb didn't run away from these problems. Instead, they dealt with them head-on, making the site stronger and more responsible. One of the hardest parts of the early days of Airbnb was getting hosts and guests to trust the service. A few bad stories came to light, including one where a guest ruined a host's home. Most of the stays went smoothly, though. People were less likely to believe Airbnb after these kinds of events, which made them seriously question the safety of the platform. To fix this, Airbnb added a $1 million host guarantee that protects hosts financially in case guests hurt their property. They also added important features like identity verification, which lets users prove who they are with official papers, in user reviews, which let hosts and guests talk about their experiences. They also started offering customer service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so people could get help whenever they needed it. These changes gave people a lot more faith in the platform and helped make Airbnb a safer, more reliable choice for both tourists and hosts. As Airbnb grew around the world, it ran into problems with city governments and other local officials. Some people said that short-term rentals were making housing more expensive, making it harder for residents to find long-term renters, and changing how neighborhoods work. Cities like New York, San Francisco, and Berlin put in place strict rules, and some even tried to ban certain types of Airbnb rentals. As opposition grew, Airbnb had to find its way through complicated judicial systems. To find a middle ground, the company often agreed to charge taxes on bookings or limit the number of nights a house could be rented out. These adjustments weren't always easy, but they made it easier for Airbnb to fit in with city life and help the company get along better with local governments. In 2016, people said that Airbnb was biased against people of color on the site. A Twitter campaign called Josh Airbnb While Black brought the issue a lot of attention by having people share stories of being turned down for bookings because of their race. The effort brought attention to the fact that some hosts were discriminating on Airbnb, which hurt the company's image as a welcoming place to stay. Airbnb didn't ignore the bad reviews. They did an internal review and put in place a strict anti-discrimination policy. This made sure that all users agreed to value each other, no matter their race, gender, or religion. There was also systemic bias on the site, so they worked with groups like the NAACP that promote diversity and inclusion. These problems were very important in making Airbnb what it is now. By dealing with safety issues, lawsuits, and discrimination head-on, the company showed that it was dedicated to growth, responsibility, and welcoming everyone. Each problem Airbnb faced turned into a chance to get better, which made sure it could keep changing the way people travel. No one could have imagined how much trouble COVID-19 would cause around the world in 2020. Everywhere traffic stopped as the pandemic spread around the world. Airbnb was in a crisis that had never been seen before, with bookings dropping sharply and income dropping even more. To save money and get through the rough times, the company had to let go of about 25% of its staff. Many people were worried that Airbnb might not be able to stay in business after what happened. But Airbnb didn't give up when things got tough. Instead, they quickly changed. The company changed its attention to long-term stays because it knew the pandemic had changed how people lived and worked. Airbnb found a new market for people who work from home and want to get away from it all. These people want to live and work in beautiful places. This change not only gave Airbnb a boost, but also met the needs of visitors in the world after the pandemic. To make sure everyone is safe and to comfort both hosts and guests, Airbnb changed the rules for cleaning all properties. This included thorough cleaning instructions that hosts were supposed to follow between stays to make sure that guests felt safe and at ease in their rooms. By the end of 2020, Airbnb had come back from a terrible loss in a big way. A huge number of people bought shares in the company in one of the biggest IPOs ever. Even though the pandemic caused problems, Airbnb was still worth more than $100 billion, which shows how strong it is and how well it can change to a world that is changing quickly. It was an amazing comeback that showed that creativity and adaptability could lead to success even when things looked very iffy. Airbnb is now one of the most well-known names in the travel business. It has ads in over 220 countries and is used by people all over the world. Anyone can find a place to stay on Airbnb, whether they want a nice apartment in the middle of a busy city or a cabin in the middle of nowhere in the woods. The platform has a lot of different places for people with different tastes and budgets, from people who like to explore cities to people who love nature. But Airbnb has changed into a lot more than just a place to stay. It's now a full-fledged travel company that has completely changed how people travel. It started as a simple tool for finding places to stay, but it has grown into a bigger travel ecosystem. Airbnb has expanded into the experiences market, where people can book a wide range of one-of-a-kind events, such as classes in how to make pasta in Italy, trips to see wildlife in Kenya, or even online workshops led by experts from the area. This growth shows a change from just giving people a place to sleep to giving them a full travel experience. Not only can guests stay in unique places, they can also do things that connect them to the cultures, practices, and hidden gems of the places they visit. This is a unique and individual way to see the world that goes beyond regular tourism. Airbnb has changed the travel business in a big way. One of its most important achievements is changing the way people move by making it easier, cheaper, and more personal. No longer do travelers have to stay in expensive hotels. They can now choose from a wide range of places that are more unique and personal. It has made new options available for tourists on a budget and those who want a more personal, local experience. Also, Airbnb has given millions of hosts around the world new ways to make money. All kinds of people have turned their homes into ways to make money, whether they rent out a single room or the whole house. This has helped people in cities with high housing costs or that don't use their rooms well the most. It's also helped the tourist industry become more diverse by adding more locally owned and run businesses, which usually offer a more authentic and memorable stay. A feeling of community has also grown thanks to the platform. Airbnb has helped people from all walks of life meet in meaningful ways by making it easier for hosts and guests to talk to each other. People who visit can talk to people, hear their stories, and get a sense of what the places they visit are really like. In return, hosts can talk about their culture and experiences with guests, making connections that go beyond business. One of Airbnb's biggest wins is making people feel like they belong and respect each other. If you are having fun watching Airbnb's business story, you should go through existing business videos on our channel. You will for sure get insight of business world from these videos. However, Airbnb has had some problems and has been criticized. One of the biggest worries is how the platform will affect the housing markets in big towns. Some people say that Airbnb has made the housing problem worse in cities like New York, San Francisco, and Barcelona by making it harder to find long-term housing. Home and apartment owners may choose to rent their properties to tourists on Airbnb to make more money, which means that locals have fewer choices. This change has caused rents to go up, especially in areas with lots of tourists, making it harder for locals to find homes. Airbnb has also had problems with safety, trust, and discrimination for a long time. The company has tried to fix these problems by implementing better safety measures, like the $1 million host guarantee and higher cleaning standards. But damage, theft, and other problems still happen from time to time. Over the years, there have also been claims of discrimination, with some guests saying they were turned away because of their race, gender, or sexual orientation.
An Airbnb host in North Carolina is accused of sending vile messages to a business student. Vladimir Dutier of our streaming network CBSN talked to another customer who claims she faced racism on the site several times.
Airbnb has put in place anti-discrimination rules and teamed up with groups to deal with these issues, but many people are still upset about them. Even with these problems, Airbnb has changed the way people travel, giving millions of people around the world new adventures and chances. It shows how important it is to be creative and flexible, because the company has kept growing and changing even when things got tough. This trip that Airbnb has been on so far seems to be a lot like its future. Airbnb's story shows how important it is to keep going, be creative, and be able to change. What started as a cheap way to pay rent in a small San Francisco apartment has grown into a global business that has changed the travel industry. It was started by Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecharczyk. They showed that even crazy ideas can work if you are tough, determined, and open to change as you go. Their way to success was not easy. It was paved with setbacks, mistakes, and even some problems. Airbnb had some problems, like not being able to build trust at first and having to deal with a lot of legal problems. It also had to deal with safety issues and discrimination. They overcame each problem by being strong, coming up with new ideas, and staying true to their main goal: to make the world a place where everyone feels like they belong. The company's quick growth, from having only air mattresses in their apartment to having millions of ads all over the world, shows how determined and visionary they are. They didn't just make a way to travel. They made a community that brings people together across countries, cultures, and expectations. When you book an Airbnb in the future, think about how far the company has come. It began with 2 poor men, a few air mattresses, and a dream. Now it's an important part of how people move and connect around the world. What is your key takeaway from Airbnb's story? Share with us in the comment section below. If you enjoyed watching the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go through the existing videos on our channel. See you soon in another video.